All right. Hello, and welcome to this episode where we are going to talk about changing how you view anxiety. Now, when we talk about anxiety, um, really what we're talking about is the feelings in the body. And so I want to kind of start off by talking a lot about how people talk about OCD and anxiety. And I think there's some confusion there as well. And so that's something else that I want to cover in this episode. But before we dive in, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty. I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And if you're looking for help, with OCD and anxiety, we have some links down right in the notes of the show to get you started, whether it's the book or the workshop. We also have a full 12-week program over at restoredminds.com to help you really, again, break out of these loops and take back control of your life. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that that was available. Also, if you benefit from the show in any way, or you've been a listener for any length of time, we'd really appreciate if you would take just a few moments and like and subscribe, as well as leave a comment on YouTube or a review on iTunes or Spotify. So, with all that said, let's go ahead and dive into the show. So, when we're talking about anxiety, what we're talking about here is just your nervous system. And when your nervous system goes into fight or flight, you can feel a range of stress, right? That could be anything from I feel anxious about a date that I'm going to go on or a presentation that I'm going to give at work to full blown panic attack or even feelings like derealization and depersonalization. And that really is that whole fight or flight mechanism that you have in your nervous system, but just built in, right? And what anxiety is when that nervous system is going off and there's actually no current threat happening, right? So what we're feeling is all the energy that we would normally use to fight or fight a threat if it was present, but because it's not present, all that energy is just happening in our body, and a lot of times we don't know what to do with it. So when people talk about OCD and anxiety, right, what we're really talking about with OCD is that when we're in this fight or flight state, a lot of times what can happen is a lot of racing thoughts can start happening as a result of being in fight or flight. And those are all the what if thoughts, the intrusive thoughts, which then can create more anxiety. So anxiety is really a spectrum of an experience. And OCD is one of the ways that can manifest. So when we're talking about OCD and anxiety, a lot of people say, well, like my OCD is harder for me to deal with than my anxiety. We're talking about really, a big spectrum of an experience here, and that's why it's important to kind of let go of a lot of these labels that we've taken on and diagnoses, because in my opinion, they don't really serve you that well, other than to know where to get help and how to get help and how to intervene and how to, again, do things that are going to calm your nervous system down, calm your mind down. And there's obviously very, very powerful and effective interventions for that. So I just wanted to clarify, when we're talking about anxiety, it's really this whole experience of this fight or flight going off. And that can include, again, the racing thoughts, intrusive thoughts. But what I'm referring to here in this particular episode is a lot of the feelings in the body. And this can come off all sorts of ways, whether it's like feeling hot, sweaty palms, racing heart, again, constricted chest, pain. It can manifest in so many different ways. Hyper awareness, hyper vigilance, all that stuff. So one of the problems that I think happens in Western medicine is that we have pathologized anxiety. And what I mean by that is we've convinced everyone that having anxiety is a disease, right? It and in many ways, when you just break down the word disease, dis-ease, right? It's a lack of ease in the body. So it's true. It is. Your body's in a heightened state. But we've gone ahead and created all these diagnoses and slapped them on people, convincing them somehow that they're broken. And I think that's such a poor way to look at anxiety, because what that then causes people to do, because we have all these things, is when anxiety is present, then immediately we assume that something's wrong with us, right? And paradoxically, what happens is when we start treating anxiety like it means something's bad, and then we try to get rid of it, right? And so we do all these things to get rid of it. In fact, a lot of very common behaviors are really just attempts to neutralize anxiety. When you feel a little anxious at a party or an event and you have some drinks, you're usually neutralizing anxiety, right? That's a good way to, just a simple way we could talk about a safety behavior, or smoking weed or avoiding things that might trigger us, right? These are all little ways that we navigate our feelings as humans. But when we view anxiety as bad, the issue is we're going to treat it as unwanted, and the paradox is that we're going to resist it, and that actually is going to make it stay around more, and we're going to experience it more, which is going to paradoxically reinforce the idea that we're broken or sick or we have some disease, when in actuality it's a relatively normal experience. And I don't think this was ever ill-intended, but I think it's gotten to this point for a lot of people where, I know it did for me, where I just assumed that the presence of anxiety in my body meant that there was something wrong with me. And the reality is just not true. All that means is that my nervous system is sending off the messages of like threat when there's no current threat happening. And so because I have a nervous system, because I have a brain, it's going to try to help me, and it's going to take the information that I give it and learn from it. Like, you can learn to be afraid of things. I read that the only two fears we're born with are falling and so, like, infants will like actually have a fear response to like falling, and I think drowning, but I might even be wrong. I don't even remember what the second one was, but everything else on top of that is learned, right? Like these two very, very primal fears. And if fear is learned, it can be unlearned. And when you start to teach yourself that anxiety is dangerous, so if you start feeling anxiety in the body and then you start doing things to get rid of it immediately, and your life becomes about getting rid of it, whether it's like, I need to take supplements, I need to take these medication, I need to avoid anything that triggers me. What are you teaching your brain? What are you teaching your nervous system when you do that? That these feelings are dangerous, they're threatening. Therefore, the problem with that is that by resisting them and not feeling them, they persist. And this is why people develop what we call anxiety disorders. An anxiety disorder is not the presence of anxiety. What it is that because we resist the presence of anxiety so much, it then creates disorder in our life. Same thing with intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts are not the indication of a disorder. When we're doing everything we can not to have them, and our whole life becomes about not having intrusive thoughts, that's going to create a lot of disorder in our life. In fact, when you look at how one measures on, the test with this, quote unquote disorder, whether it's the Y-BOX or, the different assessments that you can take to get an official diagnosis, even though, I'm going to be transparent, I'm not about that. But if you were to be officially diagnosed, you would take these assessments. And a lot of times what they're calculating is how much time do you spend, how much of your day is occupied with trying to mitigate these feelings or these thoughts. And what we're really calculating is how much disorder is this creating in your life. Not is the presence of this and this here, and therefore you have this disorder. Because every time I've given a presentation, every person I've ever asked this question to, hey, have you ever felt anxiety in the body? Every single person has raised their hand. Which means, has your nervous system ever gone off when there wasn't really a threat happening? Or have you taught yourself that something's dangerous when it wasn't really dangerous? It's like, yeah. Every time. I've yet to meet a person who has said, hey, I've never felt anxiety before. I don't know what that is. Can you tell me about it? It's just never, I haven't had that conversation yet. Maybe I will one day. But because if we have the relationship and we have the view that anxiety itself is an indication of a disorder, we are going to paradoxically create more disorder in our life. Versus if you have the viewpoint that anxiety is just an indication that my nervous system's going off, and that it's a, what you might call a faulty neuroception, right? Or where it's like my nervous system's going off when it shouldn't be. In treating that feeling with just an openness and allowing that feeling to run its course, and then by not doing anything about it, you're actually showing your nervous system, hey, like, we're not in danger. That's all exposure response prevention is, which everyone talks about, it's the cornerstone, the gold standard of OCD and anxiety treatment, right? Where we're showing our nervous system that we're already safe by not doing anything that's validating we're in danger. That's changing how you view anxiety. The fact that we view it bad, or even label it as bad, tell ourselves that it's bad, causes us to resist it. And because we resist it, that paradoxically perpetuates it in our life. And then our life becomes more and more about not feeling a normal feeling, Now, granted, if your nervous system's going off all day, every day, yeah, like, it's not, I mean, I'm going to be transparent. Like, that's not, like, we want to work on that, right? I'm not saying just to like constantly do your safety behaviors and just allow the anxiety to just run all over the place. No, like, we want to send messages of safety to our nervous system. And one of those messages has to be that it's okay to feel however we feel. And that's what taking back control is about. Taking back control is about not having fear be the driving force of your life. And that fear can be about having thoughts, can be about situations, it can be about having feelings. If fear is the driving force of your life, you're not in control. And that by changing our relationship with anxiety, literally like changing how we view it, not labeling it as bad, it allows for a lot more possibility to open up in life. See, that's like one of the biggest assumptions that we all carry, is that anxiety is bad. That's a huge belief that I think keeps many people stuck on this journey. Is it uncomfortable? Sure. Well, I mean, think about it. Your body's sending you this energy to fight or flight, and nothing's there. So sure, there's a big excess buildup of energy in the system. But when you treat that as unwelcome, that's where the problem begins. Your assumption that the feeling is the problem is a huge trap. Huge trap. And that's why, I wanted to make this episode today, is that it's oftentimes these very little adjustments that get us where we want to go. And it's oftentimes challenging the very assumptions that everyone else is agreeing with and everyone else is validating, that can help you get results that no one else is getting. Because if you go to, I'll argue a majority of doctors, and you tell them you have anxiety, odds are they're going to potentially try to give you something for it, which validates that it's bad. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a place for medication in this. I'm not anti-med. I'm not anti-doctors. I'm not, but it's more what I'm trying to challenge is the overarching narrative of anxiety, the story that we just assume to be true about it. That's what I'm aiming to try to, at least challenge in this episode, and say, hey, like, maybe I can start to even adjust my beliefs on this just a little. And maybe instead of saying it's bad, I'm not trying to say it's good, but maybe I can just be kind of neutral about it. Maybe it's just a feeling that I can experience as a human. These these little shifts are huge on your journey to recovery, and changing how you view anxiety, not changing anxiety itself, I've learned is a very, very powerful stance you can, because you can choose how to view it. You can't always choose if anxiety is going to be present or not, but you can choose how you're going to view it. So hope that was helpful. And again, if you're looking for help, we have some links right down in the notes. Check out restoredminds.com. Also, like I said, if you'd help us out by leaving a review or a comment below, it would just help the algorithm of the show, which helps us get this to more people. So with that said, I wish everyone the best. I wish you a great week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care.